morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to an extra special edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I have the author of 50 Years of Accrington Stanley, Darren Woodhead, here with me today. And we have another one of our Accrington Stanley Legends interviews. We're very excited to welcome a man who played 136 games for Accrington between 1990 and 1994, putting the onion in the bag 41 times. Welcome to the show, Bernie Hughes.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on.
Bernie. Big build up there we give you.
It is, yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, it's really nice to have you on. You're the first player we've had on from the 90s, actually. So it's
really?
Nice
really?
Touch for
That's
us,
unusual, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we've a few more lined up, but you're the first.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk about this point in Stanley history, and of course, John Coleman came to the club back in 1999, and we've chronicled a lot from the past 20 years. But there's so much history that got us to where we are today, and to me, that really started in the era that you played in back in the early 90s. And so when you first came to the attention of Stanley fans, you had signed from Droylsden, and that was actually a record fee for the club when they signed you. So that was kind of a sign that the club was coming forward. They made a big signing in bringing you in. So, but tell us about your football career before Stanley to kind of start out with.
Right. Okay. Well, I started off. I played local football really around the Stockport area. I played Saturdays and Sundays, but for very good teams. In them days, it's all changed now. I look through the leagues now, and there's only maybe two teams in the area, whereas then there were six divisions in Saturdays and Sundays. And I started off plus playing local football, very high, very good standard. Yeah, there's some very good players. And then I sort of moved on from there, really. A friend of mine who played for Cambridge Celtic at the time, he approached me and to see if I fancied coming to pre-season training with Cambridge Celtic. I went along, got myself really fit, and they offered to sign me. So that's where I started. But at the time, the manager was a guy called Kevin Keelan, and he was a big hero up in Tameside because he'd played for Mosley and had won the FA Trophy, and he was a player manager. So basically, there was me and him up front, and my time there, I didn't really enjoy. That was basically how I started. So I only stayed with Stalybridge for about 10 games. I missed all my friends and the travelling. I couldn't really get into it. So back home I came, back to playing Saturdays and Sundays, and I carried on for that season. But I always felt, I couldn't carry on playing, Saturdays and Sundays. I wanted to better myself, and Phil Staley came along, and that's when the story started with Droylsden.
Right. So Phil Staley, obviously manager who then took you to Accrington. So what were your time like at Droylsden before you got to Stanley then? How did you fare with Droylsden?
Well, to be fair, what Phil did, obviously Droylsden had a very, very small budget, and he got players from different areas. And we had a few lads from the Stoke area. We had about 3 or 4 players from around Liverpool, and about 4 from my area, Manchester, Stockport. And he assembled a team on peanuts, really. For a club like Droylsden, it was, we weren't playing for the money, put it that way. And but the team was a very good team. A lot of the players went on to do good things, to be fair. I mean, Tony Naylor, who played up front for me, he went on to play professional football. Yeah, they sold him to Crewe Alexander for £10,000 back in the day. Yeah, there's quite a few players. Darren Lyons, that was up front. He played up front with me. He played for Accrington Stanley.
He came to Stanley later, didn't he?
Yeah, Darren. Yeah, Darren could catch pigeons. He's that quick.
Oh, he was a good player.
So all the players, they all went their own separate ways eventually. And obviously Phil, to be fair, how the story went was at that particular season, it was League Town had been promoted, and they were also got into the trophy final. And there's only 3 games left, I think it was, and we had to play Leek at home at Droylsden, and we had to play Accrington. Now Accrington were the team who we were competing against to get promoted, and as it happens, we beat Leek 4-0, and we beat Stanley, I think it was 2-0, and I scored 2 goals. So that's sort of how, obviously Accrington missed out. They were a big club. They wanted to progress. And I think that's where they looked at Phil Staley, because he produced a side on a very, very low budget and successfully.
Yeah. It's almost similar scenarios when John Coleman ended up coming to Stanley, really. I mean, we missed out on promotion, and then the chairman starts looking round who else is doing well. And obviously, John Holt's gone and cast his eye over Phil Staley and thought, he's our guy, isn't he? So he's brought him into Stanley, and then you follow quite soon after, which is, over £2,000, a sizable figure back then, really. I mean, it must have been some pressure with that, Bernie, when you first came in.
I mean, to be fair, at the time, when I look back now, it's when you look back and you think about the past and what have you, it was a lot of money, and because Stanley had they were that particular. Well, they got into a bit of financial difficulty, like all clubs. They had to keep their heads above water. And then when I sort of compare, I think terraced houses around my area were going for £20,000 then, and they paid obviously £2,500 for me. And obviously, I actually got a signing on fee and, add-ons. And so, they did spend a lot of money on me.
Yeah. So, I mean, the gamble paid off. You hit the ground running and managed to get promotion in the first season. I mean, albeit due to 1 or 2 teams couldn't go up, that's the way it always works out, isn't it, in non-league?
We had the ground.
At those times.
Yeah, we had the, obviously, from playing from Droylsden, the pitch at Droylsden to coming to Stanley, and the club itself, it was a step, even though Droylsden got promoted, it was a step up because everything was more professional at Accrington. The ground, your backroom staff, just the club as a whole, it was a lot more professional. You felt like you were playing at higher tier, even though at the time I wasn't, but that's how it felt, as a player.
Yeah, I suppose the club at Stanley at that time gearing themselves up for the Northern Premier League, and that's what happened when moved into that level. And pretty decent 91-92, pretty decent season. Club held their own. You managed to score quite a few goals. Some decent players at the time, weren't there? I mean, you had a good partnership with Paul Beck. Becky could knock the goals in, couldn't he?
Oh, Paul was obviously the local hero. He comes from the area. It's funny. I actually met up with Paul a few years ago. He come down. I went out for a drink, and he hasn't changed much.
He's a character, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a character, Paul. But he could finish. He's a typical. I was referred to like a Dennis Law player. In the box, you give him the ball in the box, and he'll score. He's always at the right place, right time. That's what sort of player Paul was. He's a hero in Accrington, at the time, couldn't FA Cup run and probably still is today, when people that follow, support Accrington, all them. I mean, it's 30 years ago.
I know, I was just thinking that.
I can't believe it.
Yeah,
can't believe it.
Making some notes, and we'll come on to that about the cup run in a minute. But
it's funny, Darren, it's funny because I thought to myself, I was a bit of a tired of the shed yesterday, and I got my football bag out, which is under all the boxes. And I pulled out my boots. It must be 25 years old, my Adidas Predators. Yeah. I know I've still got a lot of the programs, from the Stanley days, my Droylsden days. Obviously, then further on Ashton, I found the program for the crew game. And you just sit there and you think to yourself, 30 years ago, I signed for Stanley. I can't believe how quick the time's gone,
I know. I'll come on to that in a minute. But first of all, I just wanted to ask you about talking to Paul Beck. There's been a bit of a light-hearted controversy on Twitter about a game for Stanley away at Bishop Auckland where we won 6-0.
Yeah.
Now, the record books have you. I mean, I didn't go to that game. I must admit, I didn't go to a lot of away games at that point. But the record books have you scoring a hat-trick.
That's correct.
And Paul Beck getting 2 goals. Now, I think Becky's claiming all three on Twitter, so I've been winding him up a little bit, but only a bit of fun.
Absolutely, 100%. He was nowhere near that ball. Because I remember that game very clearly, because when I played at Droylsden, I played in a different position than I played for Stanley. But when I played for Stanley, first went there, I was more of a number 9 and I pushed right on. When I played for Droylsden, I was more, I hung back, and then obviously them days, the keeper, whoever, and I'd push right onto the centre half. Now, Phil Staley, my game was, I was full of energy and running. I used to enjoy chasing, defenders down, and I felt a bit, when I first went to Accrington, I felt a bit, I wasn't allowed to do it. Phil wanted me to play different. Anyway, the Bishop Auckland game was the first game that Phil said, right, what do you want to do? I want you to come a bit, when they get the ball, come a bit deeper, but when we get the ball, push on. And it worked a treat, and I scored 3 goals. And Paul Beck was absolutely nowhere near any of them, because I can still remember him now.
Yeah, well, I'll be sure to mention it when we get him on here. No, it's good fun. And then the next season, that was the all-important FA Cup season. I mean, I was just talking to Phil off air, and just memories of that. Unbelievable that cup run.
Oh yeah,
all the way through to Crewe. But some of the early games as well. I mean, away at Stalybridge and the Bradford Park Avenue game, and they were excellent, weren't they? Yeah,
I mean, we're going through the games, and we've got Bradford Park Avenue, and then but the real toughie was Stalybridge away. When we drew Stalybridge, I thought, of all the draws, we don't, we didn't really want them. But confidence in that, we could go anywhere. We felt we could go anywhere at the time and beat him. And Stalybridge is my old club, and it's only about half an hour from where I live. I knew some of the players, and I thought to myself, get past these. And we went up there, and it's funny because there's a guy who played for him centre half. I got to know him after Martin Filson, and before the Stalybridge game, we had a midweek match at Accrington, and I noticed at the end of the game, the manager, I think it was Phil Wilson at the time, Martin Filson centre half was there at the bar, and he come across before he went, and he said, I'll see you on Saturday. And I said, yeah, we'll do, Martin. And off he popped, and the game kicked off, and he come up to me, and he said, wherever you go, I'll be following you today. Because at that time, I was playing deeper, and I had him all over the pitch. I ran him ragged. Anyway, took him off in the second half. I always smiled to myself, when I think of that, because he was a centre half, but I had him all over the pitch. He was told to man-mark me wherever I went. Wherever I went, I had him on the byline, the side. I had him everywhere. He followed me all over the pitch. I always remember that of that game, and obviously a great win and all.
Yeah,
great team performance.
Unexpected, to be honest. We just went. I remember going to that game with some mates of mine. I was only in my early 20s. We just went for a day out on the beer. I think we just thought, well, it's just there's no chance of getting through. We'll just go and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Little did we know. I mean, the club at that point, we'd never been in the first round of the FA Cup, so we were all just looking at it as a day out away from the league, and it was unbelievable. And then after that,
Stalybridge were flying, weren't they? They
were big players in the non-league scene then, weren't they? It's difficult to explain. I used to look at Stalybridge in esteem, really, from Accrington. It's amazing what's happened since. And then one other game that sticks out for me is Northallerton game at home to get into the first round. That was some occasion. They brought a lot of away fans. They were a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah,
that game,
I do remember that. Yeah, but the crowd was brilliant. When you think of them games, you think of the Stanley crowd. How they got behind the team. It gives you an extra gear. You read about in the papers about the professionals, and it's an extra man and what have you. But it's true. Them games. We were edging each round. We're edging nearer and nearer. Where we wanted to be, and the crowd just. The crowds were building, and each round, just keep it going. And luckily for us, we did.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Speaking to Phil just recently, and I know he's been following and speaking to members of other teams, Warrington Town, etc., and just what the FA Cup means to a small team at that time. It's incredible, isn't it? Finance.
It is.
Julie.
It's another point is that it's no matter who you play for. I mean, obviously, Accrington non-league now, but at the time, or you're talking about who you play for and what have you. And as soon as you mention the name Accrington Stanley, everyone suddenly becomes interested. You can say you play for everybody, but non-league. As soon as you mention Accrington Stanley, everyone, did you? Accrington Stanley? It's amazing. The name, it just carries itself.
It really does. I mean, as someone who became an Accrington Stanley fan from 5,099 miles away, I've done the math, is that basically, the first time I ever heard the name Accrington Stanley, it was just, something just stuck about it. And I just kind of became obsessed with just learning about it. It was just, it's just so different than anything else out there. I mean, football in general, has unique names in comparison to other sports. I mean, in American sports, everybody's like the Bears or the Tigers or something like that. But, football, you certainly, you have some unique names. You have like your Aston Villas or, something like Brighton and Hove Albion. It's just, a little bit different. But, Accrington Stanley, it just has this ring to it.
It's the story and all, Phil. It's, from going out of, founder members and then going out and then coming back in and then making their way up the leagues and where they are today. It's fantastic.
It is. It's unbelievable.
The story, and that's exactly where I was going. It was kind of the name that caught my attention. And then once I started reading the story and, the fact that everything dates all the way back to the original Football League and that Accrington was an original 1888 city and that, the club went out of business back in the 60s, refounded in the 9th division and it made it all the way up. And kind of, I actually found the team around the time that the season when it was the promotion from League 2 to League 1 was when I kind of, first started. And I kind of started reading about him, right at this big time in history. And then we started the show a few months later and, that's why we're here today.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So going back to the cup run, so obviously we managed to get past Northallerton into the first round, momentous occasion, all ticket affair, even in our small little ground and TV cameras there, etc. for match of the day. What's your memories of that Gateshead game, Bernie?
Oh, Gateshead game. Well, it was a big build up to it. It's packed house. Gateshead were a league above us, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And but. I can still remember, Phil, the team talk. Phil was ruthless as a manager. He's, he'd bring in one or two players. He wouldn't care who missed out. If he thought someone was better and he could get him for the game, he would do that. That's the way he was. And I always remember he brought in Mike Lukovic, I think, at the time. I might be wrong. Yeah. And he dropped one of the lads I call Paul Burns.
Yeah.
And, everyone was a bit, I was anyway, thinking, it's a bit unfair, but, you just got to crack on with it. Mm. And obviously the game kicked off and we knew we could beat him. I remember Phil, he just had one concern. He had a guy up front. I don't know how I'm even remembering this. It's a guy, centre forward called, I think it was Lamb. He scored a lot of goals for him. Yeah. And he brought this guy in, another guy actually, he was two, called Rick. And he said to him, I want you to man-mark him all game. And that was your only job. Wherever he goes, I want you to man-mark him. He's a danger man. And he did. And to be fair, it's Mike Lukovic, who we brought in. After about, I think it's about 15, 20 minutes of the first half, he got injured. I remember me screaming to Phil, get him off. I think he pulled his hamstring. and Paul Burns come on, and it was Paul who set up all 3 goals for Paul Beck.
Yeah, he was. He was flying down that wing, and
it's fantastic. He had a fantastic game.
Yeah, he did. He ended up coming back a few years later. Did Paul Burns for a second spell?
Oh, did he?
Right back in the Coleman days. So I think he'd done quite well after he left Stanley. I think he went to Morecambe and then came back for another spell. He was a decent little player, wasn't he, Paul Burns?
Yeah, he was, Paul. Yeah, because John was at John Coleman. He was playing for Morecambe at the time when we were playing. John was at Morecambe. In fact, I played alongside John in the league side. I remember. I remember these things. Yeah, played at Macclesfield. We played the conference side, and we beat them 1-0. Yeah, John was playing.
Right, a representative side. Yeah. Good stuff. So then it was on to got past. Yeah, it said on to play Crewe. Graham wasn't big enough, so we had to go over to Table Park. Fantastic day out.
Fantastic.
You know, the result. It was a lot closer than what it shows on paper, but
we let ourselves down that game.
Playing though, weren't they? Of all the teams in the lower divisions, Crewe were a pretty good football side.
Total footballing team, you know, and it's funny because one of the their centre forward, Tony Naylor, who was my partner at Droylsden, he caused us a lot of damage. No, he's a top player, but couldn't get grips to it with him. He's only like a pint size and all, you know, but he was movement and. But I felt, you know, the scoreline didn't reflect the game, and I thought the difference between the two sides, you know, not particularly just on that day. It wasn't that for me. I know they played lovely football and what have you, but it was just a disappointing, you know, result, but a fantastic build-up. You know, when you look back at the memories of it, the crowd, it was nearly 11,000 there, just under 11,000. I think it was the highest attendance of the round, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
and I remember staying there. We stayed at, I think we stayed in Preston overnight, getting on the bus, and they. We had a police escort to the ground, and it was fantastic. We got off the coach. When you look back, you know, and then it was full of Stanley fans, you know, around the bus and what have you. It was an incredible day. You know, all them fans turned up. You know, obviously a lot went home disappointment because of the result. But
I don't think so. We all had a great day out, and you know, expectation. And in a way, it just felt like we'd finally put Stanley back on the map, really, for a bit of, you know, football reasons, rather than just being a bit of a joke name. You know, it's finally achieved something, getting to second round of the FA Cup, you know, we're a relatively small budget from Northern Premier League. It was brilliant occasion and achievement, really. And then, so the season after that, I mean, we did quite well in the league as well that season, but I think the cup distracted us a little bit.
Yeah, we died off after the cup, if I remember right. We died off a bit.
Yeah, and then the season after, it started to fall apart a bit, didn't it, with Phil Staley leaving? And what are your memories of all that era, Bernie?
Well, I remember I remember things started to go wrong. I think they started. There's a lot of background, you know. I think at the time they had Phil was falling out. He had an assistant at the time called John Benden, if I remember right.
Yeah,
and there was rumours. It was like it then become. This is how I saw it anyway. It was like cliques of players from Liverpool who John brought, and then obviously when things started going, you know, not as well as expected. Obviously the finger pointing started, and that's when I think things started to change. You know, from the football side of it, you know, a lot of, I think to be fair, a lot of backstabbing started between John and Phil and all probably. And then I think it was in November, Phil departed. And then that's when obviously someone new comes in. He wants his own players in. He wants to, you know, change things. And unfortunately, that was the same scenario at Accrington at the time. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was Ken Wright who came in, although he didn't last very long himself.
No,
really. He didn't see the season out. But was it under Ken that you moved on then?
Well, yeah, it was under Ken because I didn't really see eye to eye with Ken. To be fair, I think he come in with his own ideas. He wanted to change things up, and so Phil had left, and because Phil was a friend of mine at the time, and I had Phil on the phone to me. To be honest, he's saying to me, "Listen, Bernie, X, Y, and Z are after you. If you're interested, blah blah blah." So I had a word with Ken, and he said to me, "Well, we'll see how it goes, but I'm not. If you want to move on, we'll follow the process." And so I thought, okay, then he doesn't really want me here, so that's fine. So I think we played Great Harwood in the Cup.
Yeah.
And John Alty, the chairman at the time, he came into the dressing room and he was desperate. He said, "Listen, I'm desperate for you to beat these," because apparently the chairman of Great Harwood was a friend of his.
Yeah.
And we beat him. I scored 3 goals.
Yeah, I remember you getting that trick. I was on that day.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ken come back to me and he says, we'll assess this if you still want to move on, or. And I said, well, to be honest, Ken, I've made my mind up now. So, this is what I want to do. To be fair, I hadn't been married long. I wanted to nearer home, somewhere nearer home for me. And that's what I eventually ended up doing.
Yeah.
To be fair.
And did you leave before or after the FA Cup games in that year? Because they played Altrincham.
No. We played Altrincham at Altrincham. And
I remember.
At the time, we were struggling for a team. We had a lot of injuries and a lot of people who started to fall apart. The team started to fall apart. Ken Wright came to me and he said, "Listen, Bernie," he said, I was injured the game before that. I had a bad ankle. He said, we can't let you go. He says, we're down to our bare bones. He said, "We play the Altrincham game." So I said, yeah. And to be fair, I was desperate to play because my best friend at the time, Ray Sidley, who played for, obviously, Accrington Stanley, he played centre-half but he was injured. He had a long-term injury, so he couldn't play. We were playing at Altrincham, which was not far from where I live. And obviously, I was desperate to play. We did. The team, did you go to that game, Darren?
Yeah, I did. Paul Beck got 2 goals. It was an unbelievable game. Brilliant team performance. I've seem to remember not even having a sub or something daft like that. We
didn't. We
just
had 11
players,
men. And everybody gave their all. 100%. Every single body could give their all. And we beat him easily. It caused us no problems at all. And so obviously then we're into the next round.
Yeah.
And
so you at Burnley this time?
I was at Burnley, but obviously I'd committed myself. I think we played Buxton the game after. I said my goodbyes, and that was the end of me at Stanley. We went. Everyone went the separate ways. So then I had the choice of who I signed for. Obviously, I wanted to stay local as possible, but after the Altrincham game, the manager approached me. If he put 7 days in for me to see if I'd be interested in going to Altrincham, but that was never on the cards because obviously they were in the conference at the time, and a lot of their matches were down south. So I'm not going to leave Stanley and go. It's more travelling for me. So Ashton United came in for me and Hyde United. So Kevin Keelan, who had played for years previously for Celtic, he approached me, and they were a club who had a lot of backing behind him, they had a lot of money behind him, and they were obviously trying to push themselves forward, and had a very good side. And I eventually I signed for them, and I stayed there for 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 2 seasons. I think I stayed there for Ashton. Yeah, we didn't get promotion. We actually we missed out the last game of the season. We tried to beat Blythe Spartans, and they beat us 1-0. So that's another story.
Well, now that we've come to the end of the Accrington part of your career, and of course, since we're an Accrington show, that's what we definitely focus on, and we'll come back and talk about your later career in a bit. But we do have a part of the show that has actually become our most popular segment, and Tony Robinson, who's one of our other co-hosts, Tony, he's originally from Accrington, actually even grew up on Stanley Street. He
Really?
now lives over in Toronto, Canada. So he's a member of our co-hosting staff, and he came up with something called Rapid Fire, and these are kind of fun questions where it started out with kind of North England versus South England, and now we've added some TV and movie and music questions. So we just get about 10 questions that are kind of fun. So hopefully you'll want to do rapid fire with us. Are you ready for rapid fire, Bernie?
Let's go for it.
All right. The first question that Tony ever asked was mushy peas or garden peas?
Garden peas.
Tony's a mushy pea guy, but I'm with you on the garden peas.
Yeah, 100%.
On your bacon buddy sandwich, do you prefer red sauce or brown sauce?
Red sauce for me.
Oh, you're not making friends with Tony at all right now. Okay, this is our first music question. The Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones for me.
Oh, that's a rare one. So I think what's that? Our third Rolling Stones that we've had, Darren?
Yeah, it's going to be some different answers. We needed some changes, didn't we? They were getting a bit too predictable. Some of these.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we'll stay with music for right now, because this was especially when you were playing in the 90s, these two bands would have been really big. Oasis or Blur?
Oh, Oasis.
Oasis. All right. I figured, you'd go with the Manchester guys on that one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. And this is what I always forget. Do you prefer black pudding with your full English breakfast?
Yes, I do.
Darren, are you a black pudding guy?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Throw anything on my breakfast, Phil. I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever even seen black pudding before.
Oh, well, I'll send you a picture of it.
It doesn't sound like something that it would travel too well.
Yeah, I won't put it in the post. I'll just send you a photograph.
We need a couple TV questions now, and Tony's first one that he came up with was Coronation Street or EastEnders?
Oh, well, both of them for me are, but out of the two, Coronation Street.
All right, and then this is a couple of documentaries that are popular on Netflix right now. Would you prefer to watch Sunderland Till I Die or The Last Dance?
Oh, The Last Dance.
Yeah, that was a good one. Have you seen that yet, Darren?
No, I haven't. It's on my list to watch in the next couple of weeks.
It's just so interesting to kind of go back and see those stories from, and Michael Jordan. He's just kind of been a guy that, really kind of keeps quiet unless he's doing a commercial or something. So it's definitely, kind of unique to see him kind of get out there and tell some of those stories.
Yeah, I'll definitely give it a whirl in the next couple of weeks.
All right, and then this one actually came in from Mark Hughes, and red wine or white wine?
Red wine for me.
Red wine, okay. And this is a special question that I have for you because your last name is Hughes. Mark Hughes has the nickname Yasser. And he told us that anybody named Hughes gets called Yasser. So I wanted to know if that was ever something you had to deal with.
It's something that I've been called in the past, yes.
All right.
You even had Bernie, you even had the tash to match, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, back in the 90s, you had the mustache to,
I did, yeah.
to match the role in the TV show, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something you'll have to give me a DVD on, Darren, because I still haven't had a chance to see Yasser Hughes.
Big back in the day, boys from the Black Stuff who were big. We've talked about it on, I think with Jimmy Bell, didn't we? But it was big back in the 80s, definitely. Big series.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it on YouTube because I'm intrigued now. And then this is our last one that we've added here recently, and this is a movie question: is Star Wars or Star Trek?
Ooh, it's Star Wars.
Star Wars. I think we're 100% Star Wars, except for Aaron, right, Darren?
No, I'm me.
Oh, you like Star Trek? Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then, then since whenever we get a Star Wars answer, we follow up with who would make the better football manager, Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Oh, definitely, Yoda.
Yoda. I think we're 100% Yoda so far. And this is actually a listener question, which we're going to get into later. This is from Daniel Crow, but it kind of fits in with this segment, so I'm going to throw it in now. Do you prefer Jaffa cakes or munchies?
Oh, both. I love both of them. But it's Jaffa cakes for me.
I have no idea what either one of them are.
No? Oh, you don't know what you're missing.
They don't have them here in the States. The box of things you're going to need to send me over is getting larger and larger there.
You're going to need a shipping container at this rate, Phil.
All right. And then our very last questions are our North American questions. And Tony, like we mentioned, now lives in Canada. Their signature dish over there is called poutine, which is chips, gravy, and cheese curds. Is this something you would like to try?
100%. Sounds good to me.
Have you had it already?
No, I haven't, but it sounds good to me.
No. Oh. Yeah, it's all right. I had it at a hockey game before, but I mean, like Tony says, you get all three food groups. You've got potatoes, gravy, and cheese. So kind of hard to go wrong. You horse that down with a pint. And then my last one is, like I mentioned to you earlier, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, where we like hot and spicy foods. And our signature pizza is pepperoni and jalapenos. Would you like to try hot jalapeno peppers on your pizza?
No, that's not for me. I'll stick with the chicken and mushroom.
Yeah, chicken and mushroom. That sounds good. I'll have to try that. All right. Well, Darren, did you want to ask some of those listener questions now?
I will. So going back to football a little bit, Bernie, we've on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, etc. We usually ask supporters if they've got any questions for the guys who are coming on. So there's a few supporters who've come with some questions, and they're the long-term supporters, so they've been around, and so there's one or two I know what they're talking about, and there's one that I've no idea. So here goes. A quite easy one from Mick Shackleton. Best memory of playing for Stanley?
Well, the best memory is the. Well, to be fair, it was the Gateshead game for the simple reason. I remember after the game, straight after the final whistle, everyone ran on the pitch, and lo and behold, my dad come running up to me. I didn't even know he was going to the game. I don't know how he got a ticket, and he told me later that he actually cycled from Stockport to Accrington to watch the game. And it's something it'll stick in my memory. He's passed away now, my dad. But when I think of that game, I think of my dad. I can still see him running to me. It's something personal, really.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's good for both reasons then. Personally, I'm for football, and excellent story. So the next one is Rob Russell. Rob's a long-time supporter, and he said, was there a centre-half who you felt you couldn't bully? So you were well known for putting yourself about, weren't you, Bernie? You're an all-hearted player. Is there anyone who you didn't get the better of? You used to dread coming up against?
Well, you come across you come across a lot of centre halves, and if one game you feel they've got the best of you, you make an effort next game if you come across them again, which you more than often do, to try and get it better. But as regards awkward centre halves, I'd have to go back to Martin Filson, Staley Bridge Celtic. He was awkward because he was so big. His legs are like elephant trunks. You just couldn't. Wherever you moved, he was there. He was like a tank. So awkward. I would say him.
Right. Okay. Good stuff. Next one, Steve Law. He's a supporter who most people know. He's mentioning that you once scored in a pre-season match and had the goal disallowed because it hit a telephone wire. Is that right?
I can,
Wow, that's
I can. It's a weird one. It's a weird one, this, because I do remember the pre-season game at Poynton because it's not far from where I live, and I do remember scoring a goal. But I do remember the game was abandoned because it was torrential, and it does ring a bell, but I can't, recollect, what actually happened. But I do remember the game and playing at Poynton and the torrential, rain.
Why would a beach ball be fair game and not a telephone wire?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy days. So, and moving on to another strange question from a good mate of mine, Gary DeMain, but I don't know what he's talking about here, and I hope you do. He said, do you remember gate crashing a children's birthday party in Port Shrigley?
Well,
I don't even know where Port Shrigley is.
Yeah, well, Port Shrigley is not that far from where I live, but when I looked at that question, my wife looked at it and she sort of gave me a strange look. I can't recollect that one. No. It's something I can't remember.
No,
I can't.
Well, Gary DeMain, his dad, John DeMain, was involved with the Stanley back in the day. He was a director, and he might have passed some information on to him, John, but his late dad. So, I'll get him to divulge a bit more, and he's on the Facebook page so he can fill in the gaps, put it that way.
It might have been something along the lines of, we were playing away or in a friendly, or we're playing someone from that area. Yeah. And after the game, we went for a drink. It might be something along them lines, like maybe.
Yeah. I'll get him to fill in the gaps, divulge a bit more. So that's wrapping up the questions from supporters. So just moving back into your career, how it ended. You went to Ashton.
I did.
Was there any more moves after that, Bernie, before you finished?
I went to Ashton. I enjoyed my time at Ashton. We were quite successful. Good side, but we missed out on the on promotion. And obviously, the way things go, you have. I would imagine you have backers that support the club, put a lot of their own money in, and then when you miss out on something, they normally replace the manager. And to be fair, the guy who took over, from Kevin Keelan was a guy. I don't want to say his name really, but I didn't really get on with him. I played alongside him in my early days at Droylsden, and he lived in the area. And it's just someone I said I won't play. He wanted me to sign a contract, and I just said no, and that was it. Then my time at Ashton was up. So then, funny, Kevin Keelan, who had just been sacked from Ashton, he went managing Mosley. Now, obviously, Mosley, he'd played for Mosley back in the day, and we had a really good side, and they won the FA Trophy. And he phoned me up out of the blue, and he said, Bernie, what are you doing next year? Are you staying at Ashton? I went, no, I don't know what I'm doing. He said, how do you fancy coming to Mosley? Mosley, it wasn't the, how can I put it, the pitch wasn't the greatest. And, I thought, do I really want to go and play this football? So I thought, I'll see me time out at, by that time I was I was about 32, 33 at the time. Thought, and they're playing in North West Counties. So I went along there with Steve Alcock, who is a friend of mine. He played for Stanley.
Yeah, he played at Accrington.
Yeah. Yep. Daft as a brush. Went along there, and we did very well there and all. To be fair, I scored a lot of goals for Ashton and from Mosley, and then I think I stayed there for a couple of seasons. I finished, and then Phil Staley, he rung me and he said, "How do you fancy playing for Carnarvon Town in Wales?"
Right.
I said, "You are." He said, "You are joking, aren't you?" You went, "No, I'm deadly serious." He says, "Help me out. I'm just kind of trying to get a team together, for see how we go, because Phil had a lot of with Phil Staley had a lot of connections. So I went down there with Steve Alcock, and we only played about 4 games. The travelling was just too much. I was never going to stay there. I was just helping him out,
Yeah.
But and then I finished, as regards semi-professional. Then I still play football, but not locally. Not 5-a-side.
Yeah.
And I always have done up until about 2 years ago. And I had a cartilage operation on my knee. It's fine, but I'm 58 this year, and you don't want to, you get a kick or a knock and whatever, and it takes ages for it to heal.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, my wife's going on to me about it,
Yeah.
So I thought it's time to, call it a day.
They tend to do that, don't they?
Yeah.
You had a good run, Bernie.
That was kind of the last thing that I did want to ask you here today, before we wrapped up here, is we kind of just talked about the end of your playing career. Did you stay involved in the game after retirement at all? Did you look to go into coaching or announcing or anything like that, or did you just kind of want to step away from it, other than, like you said, keep playing your 5-a-side and such?
Yeah, well, when I finished, I to be fair, really, I just stepped away from it. But I worked for Royal Mail, and Royal Mail had the other football side. So basically, I just sporadically we had a game only about every 2 months. And I just played for the Royal Mail for 12 months. And then that was it. I didn't really get involved in the coaching side or, running a side, running the team and what have you. No, that was it. That was it for me.
That's why it's taking so long for me to get those parcels over to you, Phil.
I was just going to say, you're the guy that I could talk about that package that took 5 weeks to get to Peter, right?
Because Bernie's playing football. We can't get...
Well, Bernie, I wanted to tell you that it has been an absolute honor to have you on the show today. And, I've really enjoyed hearing all of the stories about your playing days, and appreciate you putting up with our real rapid fire questions and being a good sport on that. But before we wrap up, we always ask if there was, anything you had that you wanted to talk about that we hadn't asked you about so far.
No, it's nice for you to ask me to come on your show, and it's nice to actually to sit down and think about the memories I had at Accrington Stanley, and it's fantastic that the supporters, you don't realise at the time, they work all week, they follow you around, supporting you, and it's something that, well, me personally, at the time, went over my head. You just sort of accepted it, but when you look back, they all work, their families, and they give you your time and your support. I'd just like to say a big thank you. For my time at Stanley, I really enjoyed it. And I look back with a smile on my face. I look for the results all the time, and I think about the lads, like your Chris Grimshaw, that I wonder how he's doing. Really decent lads, and all me playing colleagues. I wonder, what they're doing now and how they're getting on. So it's just fond memories for me.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to have some of them on the show soon and catch up with them. And it has just been an absolute honor to have you on the show. And like you said, I mean, it's just the memories in that part of Accrington Stanley's history. And like I mentioned to you earlier, I've been, following Stanley for about 3 years now. But, anything before, say, about 2005, when they got into the Football League, are really stories that can just about only be read about in Darren's fantastic book. And just to be able to have you come on the show and have other guys come on the show and be able to tell those stories. And we just like to feel that a small part of what we're doing here is preserving that history for Accrington Stanley fans to be able to, hopefully listen to these shows when the 100 years of Accrington Stanley book comes out. And just thank you for coming on being a part of that and telling your stories with us today. And hey, you're welcome back anytime. We'd love to chat with you again.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
Bernie. And just one other point, 2 points for me. One, there's an ex-player called Lee Rogerson who runs he started in the last couple of years an event where they invite ex-players back. And he did mention for me to add your number to him for him to get in touch with you to join that group of players. I think they come over for one match season. I think Paul Beck has and a few other guys, and they all go for a beer on one game as per season. So it might be something you're interested in.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's a bit like Phil said, it's been great for me to, from a selfish point of view, to reminisce, looking back at those special days. They were, they were cracking days back in the early 90s. I know they've been in some ways superseded by, the events, and we've become carte blanche. We're thinking there's good things happening all the time, but they were really, really special days for the club, and they're nice to look back on. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Darren and I were kind of joking around before the show, and we always kind of joked that when John Coleman came, that before John Coleman is like the BC of Accrington Stanley. So this is the first chapter of the Accrington Stanley Old Testament that we painted here today.
Yeah. And we're old enough to remember it.
And we always like to finish up with an on Stanley on.
Yeah. Cheers.
Of course.
Thank you. On Stanley on, yeah.
On Stanley on.
On Stanley on.